Good evening, it's meteorologist Michael Fecka. Welcome back to the 9 p.m. all-weather, all-streaming show that we do here every night during the workdays and on weekends. We stream it out to all of our streaming platforms as well as to Facebook Live and YouTube Live. So if you are joining us from either of those platforms, please feel free to leave a question or a comment down below. Hopefully I'll be able to chat with you guys as I go through the forecast, but if not, I'll go through at the very end and see if I can answer anything individually for you. But let's get started here with a look at our headlines. Well, we're tracking out some very clear and dry conditions, not only for tonight, but also through the next several days. And then in terms of temperature, we're also going to continue to remain pretty warm, well above average with temps in possibly even the upper 80s in a few spots tomorrow and on Monday. And it looks like we'll remain dry through much of next week. You know, we were always tracking out a more quiet weather pattern through the work week next week, but there was always that caveat with the tropical systems, which we're still tracking out, by the way, but it does look like a lot of the models have backed off on even that stray shower chance here in the tri-state. So I think we're probably just going to end up a dry for the next 7 days. Unfortunately, all that rain we got this week kind of just going to waste at this point, because I think our drought monitor probably isn't going to move all that much or possibly even get worse through next week. So that's unfortunate, but at least we got some rain for some time. But looking at our highs today, what did we get to? We got all the way up into the low to mid 80s across the region, 85 up towards Indy, 84 here in the Evansville area, 86 out towards Springfield. So a fairly comfortable day, but in general, that is quite above average. Typically, we're topping out in the upper 70s for this time of year. And currently, we've cooled down a good bit. 67 here in Evansville, 62 in Henderson, the cool spot, 61 there in Fairfield out in southern Illinois. And looking at our Doppler radar here, not catching even barely a cloud on our Doppler radar, so not tracking out any rain chances this evening or for the next several days. We'll stay quiet tonight with clear skies. Winds will be calm. We could even see some patchy areas of fog, but I do think most of us will be clear. Temps drop down into the mid to upper 50s overnight tonight. And looking ahead to tomorrow, very similar today, full of sunshine and warmer temperatures in the mid to upper 80s. So 87 degrees possible for some folks for tomorrow. And looking at that precipitation, I talked about how, you know, it was beneficial, and we were hoping at least that would get us on the right track and we would maybe get back to our average precipitation, you know, get a few shower chances throughout the week, but that doesn't look to be the case. But at least during the last week, or at least this period of rain that we had, we picked up over 3.6 inches of rainfall, and that was very beneficial. But looking at our drought monitor, it didn't really do all that much. This updates every Thursday, and you can see that much of the region still included within that moderate drought condition, but there is even still some severe drought within the tri-state across portions of southern Illinois and western Kentucky. Now, they were pulled back just a touch, so it chipped away at it slightly, but really didn't do a big number on it. Now, it didn't take into account what fell last Wednesday, so that may have changed things a little bit, but regardless, while we didn't really see that drought get kicked out, we did see a lot of the burn bans get pushed out of the tri-state as well. So at least in terms of southern Indiana and western Kentucky, all those burn bans have been lifted. So if you're planning on having a bonfire this weekend, you'll be good to go in those locations. But looking at our 6 to 10 day outlook, still outlook to remain below average in terms of precipitation through October 7th. And looking at our rainstorm chances here, we've got a bunch of goose eggs at least through Tuesday, and then there is that slight 10% chance on Wednesday. That really is just me holding on to that slight chance that things may change with the tropical systems down there, but really not looking like anything through next week. So if you're hoping for the rain, again, I don't really have great news for you. But let's talk about the tropics and how that may influence our weather pattern towards the end of next week. And here's a look at our two systems. We do have Hurricane Humberto. It is a major Category 5 hurricane, wind speed sustained at 160 miles per hour. If you remember Friday, just yesterday morning, it was a tropical storm when I walked into the station at 2:30 in the morning. And then as we went through the morning show yesterday, it strengthened into a Cat 1. And then by the time we got into today, it was already a Cat 5. So it did go through some rapid intensification here and is expected to maintain that Category 5 strength at least through tomorrow afternoon. And then it will gradually weaken back down into a Category 2 by the middle of next week as it heads out towards the central Atlantic. But if you remember, there was that other area the National Hurricane Center was eyeing up that was kind of situated right over Cuba and into the Bahamas. That was an area of interest. It has now developed into a tropical depression. It is tropical depression number 9 with wind speeds sustained at around 35 miles per hour. And that is expected to also head northward or northwestward at 5 miles per hour. And that's going to get closer to the coast, or at least the coast of the Carolinas is where there is a lot of concern where this could be impacting. But how this impacts us is actually the interaction between these two storms. So when these two storms get close enough to one another, it does get a little complicated. They oftentimes do a little dance and they spin around each other sometimes, and that is very, very difficult for the models to kind of pin down. And in terms of, what we can expect here, very little impact. Here's a look at the European model. You'll notice high pressure in place here, and it's big and it's strong, and it's really not going to go anywhere. It kind of prevents any of this from pushing too far inland. But what these two are going to do is kind of dance around each other. Umberto wants to pull Tropical Depression 9 out to sea. However, if Tropical Depression 9 develops a little bit stronger, it may have a harder time doing that, and then that may actually end up going a little bit further inland. But with every model run we've seen over the last day or so, it has been trending to keep it away, or at least farther towards the coast, not necessarily all the way inland. So that really does kind of take that chance for a stray shower kind of completely out of the question here. So really looking like we stay dry even into next weekend. And so not a whole lot of action for us here in the tri-state. So hopefully we can get some rainfall maybe 2 weeks from now, hopefully. But looking at our rainfall forecast through the next 7 days, getting not even a drop here in the tri-state, but off to the southeastern United States where the tropical systems are, they could be picking up as much as 5 to maybe even 7 inches along the immediate coast there. So probably going to be seeing some flooding issues out of those areas, which is unfortunate because a lot of those areas are still recovering from Hurricane Helene, which the anniversary of that was actually yesterday. So hopefully it doesn't end up being too bad for those guys. But looking at the temperature outlook, also, we're going to continue to remain above average. Looking at your temperature trend, average high sit around 78 degrees this time of year. We're going to be topping out almost 10 degrees above that tomorrow and on Monday before we cool back down into the mid to low 80s by the middle and end of next week. So there's a look at your 7-day forecast. Just to kind of wrap it all up in a little bow here, we're going to stay dry through the weekend. No real complications even as we go through much of next week. We may see a few more clouds thrown into the mix by Wednesday, and that may help keep those temperatures a bit cooler there towards the end of the work week, but not really tracking out a whole lot. But let me go ahead and see what you guys are saying in the comment section. We've got Cheyenne. She is saying good evening to you. Same thing with Ricky. He's loving this weather. Good evening, Jeanette. Good evening to Lori. William said he had 3.5 inches in his rain gauge. Looks like a long dry spell again. He's hoping the middle of October will change. Yeah, we're hoping at least get some normal precipitation. We don't need to go through a whole week where it rains every day, but at least a few days throughout the week we get a couple of showers to help chip away at it. But unfortunately, it really just does look like we may just stay dry through the next 7 days. So that is all I've got here for the forecast. I'm going to hop off the live stream. I'll send you guys over to 14 News at 10 for all the latest news and weather headlines. Until then, everybody, stay safe and have a great rest of your weekend.